Welcome into another live edition of the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Day 2 of free agency. Steph, is the sky falling? Is the plan in motion? We're going to find out right after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Day 2 of the legal tampering period. I love that term. It's so funny. But here we are. We've got some news about 49ers departing, a lot of 49ers departing, and a few that are incoming. Steph, before all that, how you doing? Hair looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm doing okay. I just got some breaking news come through my phone. The 49ers have released Sourdough Sam. So just the latest departure from the 49ers in free agency. You hate to see it.
My goodness. And sources say that the ladybug is on the trading block as well, too. I mean, at what point, does this mass exodus of 49ers players, personalities, memes, I don't get it, but Steph, it does seem like the 49ers plan is in motion. So before we get into all of the departures, let's start from the beginning, right? So at the scouting combine, John Lynch says a lot of things about Brock Purdy and his contract and the Deebo Samuel trade, which eventually happened a few days after, taking calls on Brandon Ayuk. But I felt the biggest thing that he said was about getting younger and fixing their cap situation. So we're all 49ers fans, and we all have a tinfoil theory, all the time. And we have body language experts and everything. We decipher everything. But for me, that was very telling because it meant to me, not only are the people that the 49ers intending to move on from going to move on, but there's going to be some people that we didn't think we're going to be moved on from that will be. And here we are. So that's where it started. And then the Mike Silver article comes out, and the Mike Silver article wasn't anything that was other than confirmation for that plan, talking about how much they want to spend, resetting the spending, not enjoying how those contract negotiations went with Nick Bosa and Brandon Ayuk. These are all things we kind of surmised by putting the pieces together ourselves, but that article wasn't somebody guessing. That was confirmation of a message that the 49ers were about to show you with their words and actions. So we get to free agency. And I didn't take anything away from yesterday as a surprise because all of those players were expected to move on in one form or fashion, right? So there's people that, and I'm going to say his name, Emmanuel Acho, that is like, I don't understand. What don't you understand, dude? What don't you understand? Every single one of those players was either on the move or not. And the plan was laid out. So, Steph, give me your thoughts on day one in terms of the departures. And we'll go through each one and we'll talk about our level of surprise and kind of just give our analysis on each.
Well, on Acho, I just want to say, who the fuck cares what Emmanuel Acho thinks at a time like this?
But stop being such a casual. Like, I don't understand. Like, all right, look, you're an analyst,
it's
right?
Fake
An
analyst?
analyst.
To me, it's fake outrage. Like you
Right.
knew what was going on, but as long as you're loud and wrong, you're gonna get a ton of engagement. And that's pretty much what it is. And then he went on TV and tried to make sense of it a little bit more. He had a little more context then, I think, as to what the 49ers are wanting to do. But yeah, I'm not listening to Acho or anyone else who has no idea what's going on with the 49ers. Like, what is even the point, right? I mean, I think we knew what was going to happen. I'll say this, though, Jay. I think it was a bit of an extreme to what we figured was going to happen because we knew there were going to be changes. We knew this team was going to look drastically different than it did a year ago. But I think when we're seeing some of the names that have come through as releases or they're signing elsewhere, I think some of those have been not surprising, but there's some shock value to it. Just Greenlaw, of course, I think being the biggest one. Going to the Broncos. And again, we knew that there was a big possibility of Greenlaw leaving. There were so many signs actually of Greenlaw leaving, but it hurts. So I think that's the one that, to me, yeah, we knew he was going to leave. It hurts. Kyle Juszczyk, I think, was a surprise to some, but we saw those rumors that he was going to be asked to take a pay cut, and I think that we knew there was a legitimate chance that he was going to say no because he already had taken a pay cut the year prior. So usually when you get asked a second time, you're like, no. So that's pretty much what happened with Juice, and I don't think we could even call that much of a surprise. Leonard Floyd, a little bit of a surprise, but look, I mean, I think the message is clear. You got a new defensive coordinator who's not so new, like you've had him here before, but the pieces that were in place, a lot of those had to do with Brandon Staley and Nick Sorensen and just the vision that those guys maybe had for the defense. And let's just be honest, it wasn't that clear of a vision. It wasn't very good of a vision. So it makes sense for Robert Saleh to now want to move on from some of these players. And that's in addition to everything we've heard about, the 49ers wanting to get younger, wanting to reallocate their money to guys who actually are deserving of it based on their production, right? So, yeah, I don't think it's really surprising, but I think the only thing is it's just a bit of a shock because it's all happening all at once and it's happening really fast. So that's really it. This feeling, I think, for a lot of us will subside. And I think also, the fact that the 49ers haven't made any moves to really supplement the players that they've lost is what's bothering some people and got them in a tizzy and in a panic as well. But we got to trust the process, people. And I think there is going to be some moves to be made. Jay, you have mentioned it. We've mentioned it on the show in like prior weeks. We figured the 49ers would be going after tier 2, tier 3 guys. They're going to be active in the second, third waves of free agency. That's not a surprise. Like, we've been telling you that. So that's what I expect to happen going forward. And we'll see. It seems like maybe a Bosa brother could be on the way here soon.
Yeah. The Unfaithful Perspective says, if you're doing this rebuild, they'd be stupid to extend Brock Purdy. You have no idea what's happening after next year. You might have a new coach. We'll get to Brock Purdy. There's a lot to talk about there. Rob, can you put back up the departures list? Because I just want to go through all of them, and I really want to analyze these. So Jalen Moore was a backup left tackle, and the Kansas City Chiefs paid him to protect Patrick Mahomes' blindside. Okay, fine. That's your business, Kansas City. Not saying that Jalen Moore is a bad football player, but that's a surprise. Elijah Mitchell hasn't been able to play football for the 49ers for a long time, but he moves on with the Chiefs, and he's not a part of the 49ers' long-term plans. They drafted Isaac Guerrero, placed a second-round tender on Jordan Mason. Most likely they're going to draft another running back, right? Okay. Talanoa Hufanga. Pro season, largely injured. I mean, again, and Malik Mustafa makes him replaceable. So enjoy Denver. Dre Greenlaw stinks because the 49ers definitely wanted to bring him back on a one-year prove-it deal, but we knew that people were going to throw the bag at Dre Greenlaw because of the reward of his recovery from the Achilles. Because you're betting, and think about the deal, it's 3 for 30 or something like that. That's a steal for a player of his caliber if he returns. So the Broncos, we figured that someone was going to bet on that, and you know what? The Broncos did, and the Broncos added Hufanga and Greenlaw to an already stellar defense, so they're going for it. Aaron Banks, holy shit, overpay. First of all, the 49ers were not going to even pay market, let alone that entire contract, which is absurd for a player who was largely bad. If you lined up all 4 people that played left guard, Banks would probably be at the bottom of the performance list last season. Nick Sakel, Ben Barch, Spencer Burford, all look better than Aaron Banks did. But hey, Green Bay, you got it, man. Enjoy that. Mooney Ward, we understand. He needed a change of scenery. Good for you, Mooney. We'll see you this season. There's a revenge game that's brewing now. Mooney Ward, Samuel Womack, DeForest Buckner when the 49ers take on the Colts. So, that's fine. Javon Hargrave had to be a casualty when it came to salary signs with the Vikings. The Kyle Juszczyk thing, I think the writing was on the wall. This offense needs a evolution, a new step, right? Yeah. And Malik Collins and Leonard Floyd, they're just casualties of, basically the revamped defensive line. So in this, I don't really see anything that's a surprise other than the fact that the Packers are extremely stupid. The Chiefs are using the backup left tackle and using him as a starter. I don't know what was supposed to come from these that I'm supposed to be so shocked about, really. Now Luke Farrell joins, and that shouldn't be a shock to 49ers fans either. The 49ers have been telling you that they want a tight end too that can block. They've been missing it since Charlie Warner. They tried with Brock Wright, and he fell through their hands and back to the Lions. The Lions were actually the ones who matched the offer. So here's the good news. While you're looking at Luke Farrell and saying, I don't understand why you're doing this, perhaps that means for once the 49ers are going to use George Kittle more as a and spam him a little bit more because he still is the best tight end. Maybe there's some good news there. Kevin Givens is back, and am I missing anybody? Jordan Mason's back as well too, and Jordan Mason has a second round tender, meaning that if anybody wants to come get Jordan Mason, the 49ers would get a 2025 second round pick. This is par for the course right now. Like, this just feels like what the plan was supposed to be. I don't know what the outrage is when this has been outlined with words and actions.
Yeah, I agree. And you miss a couple guys, Patrick Taylor Jr., Curtis Robinson. Easy to forget. I don't blame you there, Jay, but
oh, we're back.
We are so back. Yeah, I mean, again, like I don't think any of this is surprising. I'm curious to see though, like how they again, like supplement some of the guys that they lost. Again, we were expecting them to lose some guys. The question is, okay, how are they going to address these positions? And the free agent market as a whole isn't the greatest, right? I will say, like, there's a couple of intriguing guys as far as, you know, like we've been saying, the tier 2, tier 3 kind of guys in some positions of need. And all of a sudden, for me, like, Jay, this makes the draft way more interesting. I mean, the 49ers have 11 picks. I think they have the opportunity to be aggressive with those picks. And then also, it's not even just this season, it's 2026 as well. You're going to have 4 comp picks for that one too. And at this point, that's all we have going for us, just talking about and being excited about the draft, because as of right now, we don't really have the free agents coming here to be excited about, but that will come. I think, you know, with some of the guys that they've brought in, they were at some positions of need, but I see them more as like depth guys. Luke Farrell, like I see him, like you said, someone who could free up Kittle in the blocking a little bit. And yes, I do think 12 personnel, 11 personnel, we're going to see more of that going forward for the team. So yeah, we are going to see that shift. And I think there's still some unknowns. So I'm just curious and I guess like in a way excited to see how, you know, they're planning to kind of rebuild both sides of the ball. Definitely defensive line is the biggest question mark for me because it's the one position they've lost most guys in, and they continue to like release guys, right? Like Leonard Floyd. So we'll see like how they plan to replenish the defensive line.
Also, safety Richie Grant was signed. Feels like more of a special teams addition at this point. He did play safety for the Falcons, struggled a little bit in coverage, but was primarily a special teamer. I think he's there to add depth to the position. So we look at that one position as safety and say, who is going to be, you know, the guy next to Malik Mustafa? Is it Jair Brown? Is it Odom? Is it, you know, someone in the draft? Is it going to be Richie Grant? So again, just adding people to the mix as well. So I think that's what that signing is more than anything. Moving forward, I think what you're right about, and you were dead on about, and I want to get back to, Steph, is I don't think 49er fans are upset at the departures because anybody who's paying attention to this team understood that losing all of these players was a possibility, if not a certainty. But it was the names that we talked ourselves into that we didn't end up with, right?
Yeah,
the Drew Dahlman thing seemed too good to be true. But once you hear the Bears are involved, that almost felt like, okay, it's done. Okay, so Drew Dahlman's gone. And what about Ryan Kelly? Oh, Ryan Kelly signed with the Vikings. So that's gone. So right now, for all intents and purposes, your center position is Matt Hennessy versus Jake Brendel, which if the 49ers run it back with Jake Brendel as center, I have a really big issue with that, like a huge issue, because he eroded year after year, okay? There's no way you're going to be able to sell us on the idea that the best course of action is Jake Brendel coming back. But that's fine. And then we even think, hey, we might lose Dre Greenlaw, Jamie Sherwood, right? Come on down. Nope. Jamie Sherwood
Yeah.
goes back to the Jets as well, too, right? Like DJ Reed, hey, he might be a fit because nope, Detroit Lions. So I don't think the frustration for fans necessarily the departures, and it's just more about the names that we talked ourselves into as replacements for these departures that just ended up not coming to fruition more than anything stuff. So I think you were bang on when it came to that.
Which, and those are names that maybe the 49ers weren't even considering to begin with. I mean, some I think they were, like, the guy from the Commanders, right? I'm spacing on his name right now, Jonathan Allen, who signed with the Vikings
that contract
this morning.
Was way too big. That was way too big.
So,
there was no way the 49ers were going to throw their money at that.
When you start seeing some of these contracts, I think it starts to make sense why the 49ers wouldn't want to go towards some of those players, because it aligns with what their offseason plan is and what they've told us. So in a sense, like, we can't even be mad that they didn't sign these guys, because it would completely contradict what their plan is. So again, like, it just goes back to, how are they gonna, replenish the positions they've lost. Again, there's still some intriguing names. I think the assumption is when we see all these big names go, it's like, oh, we're gonna end up with scraps. There's still some quality guys who are going to be available for the 49ers, and maybe we could talk about some of those guys at certain positions. But I think we'll start to see some of those moves take place here.
Yeah, and before we get to that podcaster in Dallas, I don't even call him an edge anymore or whatever, man. Jesus Christ, man. Less podcasts and more football, guys. I do want to say that the 49ers are doing this the right way, because if you look at every single contract that's been given out, you could make a case that they're all overpays at this point.
Yeah.
And for all the things that we're upset about when it comes to performance and return on investment, the 49ers are not overpaying, right? So you look at Aaron Banks, overpay. You look at Jonathan Allen at 30, overpay. Like, all of these contracts right now are just overpays just to make sure you get guys in. And I think it's operating under the assumption of the salary cap going up. So in this regard, are you either upset that they didn't overpay some players, or are you happy that they're staying the course and not attaching themselves to these contracts that eventually, after 1 or 2 years, age like milk? We can't have it both ways here.
Yeah,
when it comes
exactly.
To this.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit, it's a little bit of column A and column B at this point. We do have to kind of sit here and let the process play out. You really don't have to agree with the sentiment, but you have to understand that whether you agree or not, this is the plan. And you're down for the ride one way or another. And you have to at least respect the 49ers for saying that they were going to do something and then not changing up, right? Because the 49ers early on in this Lynch Shanahan regime were quick to give out these contracts on day one. Let's not forget, Jerick McKinnon got a bag, the first day of free agency. Javon Hargrave got a bag the first day of free agency. Like, these contracts aged poorly. And there's others that we can go down the list of in the first day. So are we happy that they are going to dial it back and not pay these contracts? Or are we upset that they're not bringing in the players that we want them to bring in? It's an up and down thing. Like, I think it's a little bit of left and right. But let's talk about Micah Parsons real quick, because this could directly correlate back to Brock Purdy and what's going on with him. So the podcaster in Dallas, who, again, the Dallas Cowboys have more player podcasts than they have wins against the 49ers in the last 4 meetings. It's my favorite saying. Probably the best bar that I've ever come up with on Bully Ball. Says, he replies to a Clarence Hill Jr. tweet, which says 49ers gutting themselves. And he says, no more rookie quarterback. LOL. Welcome to reality. Well, here's reality, Micah Parsons. Brock Purdy's kicked your ass 3 straight times. You want to go back to another time, Jimmy Garoppolo kicked your ass in Jerry World. So you're 0-4 against the San Francisco 49ers. I love rivalry talk. But how many times do I have to tell you this is not a rivalry if you get your ass beat every single time? A rivalry is when you're competitive. A rivalry is when you win a game. It's not a rivalry when my brother whips my ass in Madden by 30 points every single time when I'm a kid. It becomes a rivalry when I finally figure out a strategy and beat him one time, and now he's on his heels. Micah Parsons, just shut up, man. I mean, you're a great player, but my God, are you a clown? Like, this is ridiculous. I don't understand how someone who literally cried and walked off the field after your team blew a horrific game to the Cincinnati Bengals and literally is the model of a crybaby has the opportunity to talk about the 49ers when we own you. And it doesn't matter what the 49ers look like. I will take the 49ers every single time against you and that $60 million quarterback that's overpaid. Steph, you got anything?
No, I mean, nothing on this. I'm not going to waste my time talking about, the
Come on,
Cowboys.
it's kind of fun, man. Otherwise,
Parsons.
got to get back to just talking about the
I guess that's the only thing that's interesting is
we'll get back to the football talk. I promise.
Since the 49ers haven't made any moves. No, I mean, his quarterback getting money in Dallas is probably the reason he's not going to be getting the contract he wants. So maybe this is just a massive cope on his part to try to make a dig at the 49ers, losing out on all these guys. I guarantee you the 49ers is still probably going to be capable of beating the Dallas Cowboys in 2025 than the Cowboys are the 49ers, even 100%. With this little retool that's going on.
But hold on. Dallas brought in Solomon Thomas. So I don't know, man. Like, stop the pressing, Steph.
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, baby, to Jerry's world.
I just saw this report, though. I guess Raheem Mostert says the 49ers have reached out about a possible return.
We're getting the band back together.
But doesn't that like
spit in the face of what they were talking about?
Yeah. So, that's interesting, but
that's cool. I mean, look, I love Raheem, but we'll see. I think the 49ers would be better going back in the draft. Again, Trevor Etienne or bust, in my opinion, if we're going to draft a running back. I would love that. But going back to the 49ers and their departures and comings and goings, does Leonard Floyd's cut signify that there is a bear on his way?
I think it might. What I fear, though, because I remember, a couple of days ago, Tim K tweeted that, the 49ers obviously want to bring in Joey Bosa, but they wanted to keep Leonard Floyd. Then we also heard that the Dolphins made a similar offer to the 49ers offer for Joey Bosa. And obviously both teams could pull at the heartstrings of Joey. So it seems like it's heading towards him choosing the 49ers. Of course, again, that is not official. That is just coming from Pretty Ricky, the dog that breaks news occasionally on Twitter and who is occasionally wrong. So just want to put that out there. But the reason that I'm not sure, okay, going back, I hope that the 49ers didn't increase their offer in order to get Joey Bosa, because I'm only interested in Joey Bosa if it's in certain conditions where, again, I think the report was that it was under 10 million. That was going to be the offer for Joey. I hope it stays that way. I think that's a number that we can all live with for what you think he's going to be contributing to the team at this point in his career. He hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full season. In fact, last season was probably the most healthy he's been in several seasons, right? I think he played in 14 games. So you're going to expect that, he's going to miss some games. You're also going to expect that at this point in his career, he's going to be rotational. That's another thing that Tim K indicated. I'm good with that, right? Again, if it's under certain parameters, certain, money range that he's going to be getting, I would be fine with that. But if we're talking about going over that amount, and if you felt like you had to release Leonard Floyd in order to reach that amount, then that's when I'm a little, I hope they didn't overpay, which again, I don't think they would, just because they haven't for anyone else at this point. They seem very adamant on not overpaying for anyone. But I'm just hoping that, that's not what that was about.
Steph is cooking here, and I want to, expound on that. So I love the idea of Joey Bosa being a rotational pass rusher in tandem with Leonard Floyd. Mm-hmm. Leonard Floyd's greatest attribute is durability. It's a good word, right? Because we can't say that for many 49ers, right? Durability. The idea that you can get Joey Bosa through 17 games without any injury is probably arrogant, if not dumb. And keeping both of those guys fresh as rotational guys would keep the pressure up. And I thought that was the way to do this. Now, obviously, the 49ers thought ill of it and they got rid of Leonard Floyd. And for me, I think it kind of indicates that they have a good feeling that they're going to get Joey Bosa back. But the idea that Joey Bosa is an every down edge guy and you're expecting a return on investment, that's the part that scares me. And I thought the optimal way to get the most out of Joey Bosa was keeping Leonard Floyd and using them in tandem one after the other as situational pass rushers. It sucks that the 49ers are looking at this and saying, hey, we're trying to allocate this money to a situational pass rusher when Joey Bosa was known as an every down guy. But the reality is he's not an every down guy. And if you are going to rely on him for that, that's arrogant and dumb because he's going to miss games and he's going to miss time. So we'll see how this works. I do think that, it's probably closer to that. It would have been great to see Leonard Floyd and Bosa coming on like fresh legs every single time and keeping both those guys fresh. But Floyd's greatest attribute, his best ability, was his durability. So we'll see how that works out. I wanted to find out like what the 49ers are going to do with the linebacker position next to Fred Warner, because D Winters is probably next up, but D Winters has such a tough time finishing football games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we downplay his talent, but I hope the plan isn't just, hey, Fred Winters and we're rolling, right, Steph?
Yeah, and just to finish off the thought on, edge rushers, yeah, if they sign Joey Bosa, but they released Leonard Floyd, you have to bring in another edge. Like, you have to. So
yes.
there are some
Azeez
interesting
Ojulari,
names.
come on down.
Ojulari, Omenahu's a free agent, or he's going to be. Zadarius Smith, Judon. Like, there's a couple names that could potentially fill that. So I just wanted to mention that. Again, 49er fans, it's not the end-all, be-all. They can supplement through some of these tier 2 second wave guys. But going back to linebacker, like, buddy, like that suddenly has become a big need at the top of the list. Like it might be top 3 need now for the 49ers going into the 2025 season, because those are big shoes to fill. And as we've seen, the 49ers made maybe an attempt to fill those shoes temporarily last season, failed miserably. And not only that, it was just the fact that they went after a couple of guys and those guys went elsewhere. So they had to go to their plan C, basically, which was the man who shall not be named the quitter. He shall be named the quitter, but we won't mention his name here. So yeah, like they definitely have to address linebacker. At this point, I'm actually saying it could be very well a position they go for in the first round, second round. And there are some intriguing names who are, going to be available, I think, for the 49ers, certainly at 11. But also they wanted to trade back. And like I said, in the second round, there's some guys you can bring in who are veterans like Kaiser White, Shaq Thompson. Like there's a couple guys out there, but none of those really.
Devin Bush.
Yeah, it's like there's guys. It's just like none of those guys are gonna make anyone feel better. Then it's
right.
And think about it: when you're replacing someone like Dre Greenlaw, which you can't do, like you simply can't replace Dre Greenlaw. Everyone's going to be constantly comparing whatever player you bring in to what Greenlaw was, the energy that he brought. So that's very, very tough to do. And I just feel like in other times that they've been in a similar position, like, when they had to move on from Eric Armstead, for example, when they had to move on from DeForest Buckner, they haven't always done great at filling in those spots when they have absolutely needed to fill in those spots. And I'm just meaning not positionally, but from a player standpoint, when a player leaves, that you have really big shoes to fill. It's not so simple to replace those guys. I don't think it's going to be simple to replace Dre Greenlaw, but I think that your best path to doing it will probably be the draft.
So here's an interesting thought. I don't think the 49ers, if Mason Graham is at 11, will pass on that, and rightfully so. because then the 49ers have themselves a defensive tackle who doesn't come off the field for any down, right? Like we talked about it. Malik Collins, pass rusher, Jordan Elliott, run defender, Javon Hargrave, pass rusher. It's either or, and it's been either or, trying to figure out how to figure that out. So I think you get Mason Graham, fine, at 11. But here's an interesting thought, Steph. The 49ers have the maximum amount of comp picks next season, right? Now, we don't know where they lay, but the 49ers already have all their picks from next year in tow. So if you want to make a move somewhere up, in this draft, because Jahad Campbell's the obvious answer, but how do you get Jahad Campbell? He's not going to fall out of the first round unless we Photoshop a bong mask over his face and and make him drop, which I'm totally down to do, anything for the team. But how do you do that? I think there's a chance that you can see the 49ers say, you know what? We already know we have these 3rd and 4th and 5th comp picks. Let's move these picks and to try to move up. I think that's the only way that you address it with the linebacker 1 in this class. Now, there's other people that you can. I just don't like the idea of Band-Aids. And Band-Aids are the reason that the 49ers are in the spot that they're in right now, across the board. A Band-Aid here, a Band-Aid there, but the scab is still bleeding, right? Like it stops bleeding for, a little while, but when you take the Band-Aid off, when you rip the Band-Aid off, it's bleeding again. So I think the 49ers are in a good spot here in the draft. You talked about being excited. I agree with that 100%. But if we go ahead and we think about this logically, the 49ers have the max amount of comp picks. They already know they have all their picks next season. Why not try to accelerate the process by moving up for a guy that is going to be a difference maker? I don't think that we would move back up for Campbell because Campbell's not leaving the first round. But I'm just saying in general, if the 49ers identify a player, let's go get him because you have all these picks. You're not going to be able to keep all those guys next year when you add those 4 comp picks, right?
Yeah. And, honestly, more time has gone on and the options that seem like they would be available at 11 are less intriguing to me. I think the most intriguing option would be if Mason Graham falls, if Mambu falls, and you're able to get either one of those guys at 11. But other than that, there's been a couple guys who early on I was thinking would be there, and I was thinking would be a slam dunk, like Walter Nolan, even James Pierce. There's a couple of options, right? But now there's character concerns.
Yeah, I was going to say, aren't they off the Niners board because of character concerns? Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So now suddenly pick 11, I'm not convinced that there's even going to be a guy there that they like. It's either going to be someone from the top 10 that falls to them and that's awesome. Or I think it's more likely that they would now, maybe trade back. And in that case, that opens up even more the possibility of a Campbell. I like Jalen Walker. I think he can fill a couple needs for the 49ers, being the hybrid player that he is. But yeah, definitely they'll have options. That's the key. With all these picks, they're going to have options. They're going to have the flexibility to be aggressive. And whether they want to be most aggressive in this year or next or be aggressive in both, they're going to have that option. That's the power of the number of draft picks that they have right now. And so, yeah, the linebacker to me would be that would be a position I'd target in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to find out. And I think free agency is the best part about it is it outlines team better. All those mocks that we did before free agency, just ripped them up at this point because we didn't know teams were going to do this and do that, right? Mock drafts should start this week when they become more and more realistic based on team needs through free agency. But no 49ers podcast would be complete without at least discussing the Brock Purdy contract negotiation. So this damn Pat McAfee show is the bane of my existence. So Ian Rappaport goes on Pat McAfee today, and he says there's nothing imminent when it comes to Brock Purdy. Well, thanks for the news. It's March 11th. I would have never thought that anyway. I mean, that's not really breaking news. I mean, what? Did I think the deal was going to get done on March 12th? No. So thanks for the news, Ian. But I believe it was Tim Kawakami or somebody else, and Rob, you can correct me, who basically echoed those sentiments. I want to start this conversation with the fact that Geno Smith is going to get a deal, with the Raiders, and then Sam Darnold. And what that means for the 49ers in terms of what they want to pay Brock Purdy or where the starting point is. And it was Tim Kawakami. He says, the most important issue going into the offseason is the same one now. Can the 49ers get a deal done with Brock Purdy? From what I heard, nothing is imminent, but the atmosphere remains very good on both sides. Nothing is imminent, but also there's no early skirmishing. And I think that article also that he's quote tweeting, I think everybody should read it. It outlines the plan, and it also says that there's no excuse now based on how much you've cost cut to not pay Brock Purdy, right? But I do want to start kind of with the Sam Darnold, Geno Smith thing, because those contracts could be a little bit telling in terms of where the 49ers want to start or where they might land with Brock.
Yeah, and I think all this talk about, nothing being imminent, like that kind of seems like negative, but I don't think it's really negative. I think it's just like where we are in, the timeline. Like you said, it's March, right? Because in that article, like I actually came away thinking it was an encouraging update on, where the discussions are on Brock Purdy's contract. And even in that article, he said nothing is imminent. But I expect there will be a deal by May or so is what he said. So everyone I talk to expects a deal, and I talk to some people who can be very pessimistic. And so I think a deal will get done. I think with some of the comments that are coming up here, like I agree with some of them. I think with Parag and where Jed are at, like they're not going to move off of their number. I think they're not only are we going to see hard ball, we're going to see hard line, because they're not going to move off of that. It's like they have in past years. So this comment from Nick Eller, consider Perfect. Josh Allen just got $55 million a year, really helps 49ers. Brock can't ask for more than 50. I think from the APY standpoint, like that's totally fair. But we got to remember, like even Trevor Lawrence getting paid 55, right? But I think that would definitely be the ceiling for Brock as far as APY. But we know APY is just like funny that's money. the window dressing, So I think the big money is going to be the guaranteed money, and obviously Brock does not have a leg to stand on if he were to ask for anything near what Josh Allen got or any of these like top quarterbacks got. If you look at guarantees, I think it'd be fair for him to get more than what Jordan Love is getting paid, for example, and that's about it. But I think we're gonna hear the APY number first, and I think that will be closer to the 50 number, but we'll see about the guarantees.
Consider this. Because Nick's dead on with that comment. Consider this. We live in a world where we're happy with the contract that Josh Allen just signed and the number because it helps Brock Purdy somehow. Like, I never would have seen that coming, like, in any way, right? Like, it's just funny how, like, things work out and the way the quarterback market is going, right? Again, that 55 isn't indicative of what he got. He got 250 M's guaranteed. Like, that's the real money. So we're going to have to figure this out one way or another. But the Darnold and Geno contracts are going to be a good starting point. And Brock can still look at both those guys and say, I beat this guy 2 times. Like, Darnold was my backup. He couldn't beat me for the job, right? So it is a good spot right there. And I think in the middle is somewhere where you'll find it. Again, hearing that the deal's not imminent on March 11th, did you expect this to get done in a week? I wasn't even in all of the things that are going on with the 49ers in terms of free agency and the draft. That's the last thing I'm thinking about right now. Like, that's in a way in the back of my mind. I haven't been thinking about that at all. That'll get figured out when it gets figured out.
Probably in the back of their mind too. I mean,
right. So don't panic when you hear that it's not imminent, because it wasn't going to happen this week regardless, even if things were perfect. But I do want to say this. 49er fans have this like love-hate relationship with Tim Kawakami. TK's been cooking. Like, he has not really been missing with much. And it's been interesting to watch, like, this almost like rebranding. Like, I don't have an issue with Tim Kawakami. A lot of Bay Area fans do. Because not only does he cover the 49ers, he covers the Warriors. And there's a lot of contentiousness between those. But he's been cooking, man. And I think him, Mike Silver, they've been bang on. Like, basically with almost everything that they're talking about, because it's in line with what's being done with words and actions by the front office. So I just wanted to say that. Just I know that there's this, like, again, because I don't understand, because I'm not from the Bay Area. Tim Kawakami's never done anything to me, but a lot of fans don't feel that way.
Well, he's blocked a lot of people.
Mike Silver too.
So yeah, and I'm still blocked for Mike Silver, but thankfully I've never.
Oh, we got to get that fixed. You want me to talk to Mike?
I know. I gotta talk to him.
Yeah,
like he's a phone call away.
I talked to him at the combine, and he was like, "Did I block you?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I'll block you right now." I was like, "Oh, nice, Mike."
I gotta meet him at next time at the combine. But yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just sometimes he gets into these arguments with people on Twitter, and people don't like that, and then he blocks people. For me, it goes back, or it went back to when he was doing the reporting on the whole Harbaugh situation and Balky, and because he was on it for that too. He had that before anyone else, but we didn't want to hear it at the time, right? Even though he was right. It was just one of those things that we didn't want to believe. So, you can imagine the reactions that fans had towards him. I think at that time, I wasn't trying to hear it either. So I was upset. Similar to like Mike Silver and everything he kind of telegraphed with the Trey Lance stuff, like very similar. We kind of just didn't want to hear it at that time. So I think that's where it comes from. I've been, I haven't thought about that in a long time, and that's water under the bridge for me. So Tim K, he has been cooking. I've been listening to his podcast for the last couple of years, and he always has some interesting tidbits that not a lot of people have started really latching onto or paying attention to until recently, right? So now you're seeing all those posts. He's getting aggregated quite a lot. But he's got some good info and intel for sure on what the 49ers are doing. And yeah, he's been on the money.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. We talked about Brock Purdy. We talked about, everything with the departures and how the 49ers plan has been clear for some time. Let's try an exercise, stuff. And I want the chat to get involved as well too. Let's power rank the 49ers needs in the draft. 1 through whatever, because we're going to come up with a bunch, right? If we go back a few weeks, it was O-line, 12 picks, O-line. Every single pick, O-line. Now, wide receiver, linebacker, defensive line. Yeah, so we've got to really think about this. This is a good exercise right now. So power ranking. We just talked about linebacker. We don't want a Devondre Campbell type signing. Devin Bush, Kaiser White, these are names that are just, they're bodies at this point. It doesn't invoke excitement. D. Winters is probably the next one that's up, but again, he gets injured a lot. Tatum Batum is there, fine. Curtis Robinson's back, fine. You don't feel the excitement that you felt with Warner and Greenlaw, and why should you? Because those are 2 great players together. Defensive line, you lose Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave. For all intents and purposes, today, if the season were to start today, Nick Bosa, Evan Anderson, Kevin Gibbons, Yatir Gross-Matos, you don't feel good there, right? Center, we just talked about it. I don't see how you can run Jake Brendel back. I just don't get that. I think left guard is going to be between Ben Barch and Spencer Burford. I'd probably give the edge to Ben Barch right now. But it seems like the 49ers realistically run with what they have building. So Steph, let's start. What do you think is the lowest right now on the power ranking draft?
Oh, the lowest. So the lowest need.
We'll go lowest to highest.
Sure. Okay. And just the draft, not overall. Just
the draft.
Just in the draft.
Not free agency, just the draft. Yeah.
I'd say running back. The lowest need.
Okay. Running back is a good one. And I do think when you listen to the 49ers talking about getting younger, it's at this position as well, too. How much longer does Christian McCaffrey have? Do they trust Jordan Mason long term? Isaac Guerrero was drafted, but can he stay healthy? I think that's a good call, right? And it's the lowest, right? Because even if the 49ers don't draft someone, they could probably find somebody off the street who would, who could probably get in there and give them some snaps. Okay. What's the next one?
Next one I have tight end.
Tight end.
I just want to, but I also want to preface that I do think the 49ers draft a tight end and a running back, but
One of them.
it's on.
One of them.
Yes. Maybe
May not
even
be Tyler
two,
Warren at 11.
maybe even two running backs. Either they'll draft one and they'll bring one in as an undrafted free agent. That's my thought. So tight end,
Yeah.
second. Yeah.
So tight end, I don't think it's going to be Tyler Warren at 11, although some of the beat reporters are starting with.
What is that about?
I don't know. But Fannin, Elijah Arroyo, those type of guys will be around later on. So I don't think that's, the 49ers. So here's another part of the plan that people are forgetting. With all of these departures, the 49ers have essentially, in the draft, found their replacement. We know Mooney Ward's about to leave. Here comes Renardo Green. We know that, that other players are going to leave. Like, we're going to lose Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Here comes Ricky Pearsall. The 49ers have been prepping for these things. So don't think that the 49ers are not forward-thinking enough to think about life after George Kittle, even though he's going to get extended. So I think that's a good point. It's a very good point. Okay. Number 3, what do you got?
I'm going to say wide receiver. Because yes, you moved on from Deebo Samuel. You still have Brandon Ayuk though, as it stands today, March 11th. So, and I do expect them to keep him. So yeah, you drafted Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing last year. You roll with those guys. I think Juwan Jennings will obviously have a role in the offense as well. So I think, it's not a big need, and I do think they'll draft a wide receiver, but it's just not as big a need as some other ones we're going to discuss here shortly.
Jalen Noel, Jack Beck,
Give me Beck, man.
These are the type of guys that you can, yeah, man. Oh, please. I need it so bad. Like literally, again, I'm going to say it. I think Jack Beck is this year's Puka Nacua. Like, yeah, people are just going to not understand how he fell so far. So that's me staking my claim on him. I think he's that good. But yeah, I do think the 49ers have to, because for all intents and purposes, it's going to be Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. And there's no way the 49ers are just comfortable with that idea, or at least we hope they're not. Okay. So next, Steph, I think you're doing a great job here. Let's keep it rolling.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
I had
with
to put you on the spot too. It's funny. We didn't even talk about this.
No, I know you didn't. And I started writing notes here hella quick. So my next one is safety, because, I think you have Malik Mustafa, he's going to start. You still need another starter though. I'm not convinced that Jair Brown is going to be that guy. I think you need someone who's going to be competing with him. You bring in, what was his name? The guy that they just signed.
Richie Grant.
He's not going to start, in my eyes.
He's a body.
Going to be a special teams guy. You have George Odom, special teams guy. I don't think he's going to start, although they'll make him part of the competition. But I really think they should bring in another safety. And I'm looking for a safety who is better in coverage. And there's a lot of ball hawking safeties in this draft that I'm interested in. So yeah, safety would be the next one.
Yeah, I think that's a good call as well too. I think, obviously Justin Reed's out there, but again, it just doesn't seem like the 49ers are going to be spending, when it comes to free agents. Justin Reed would be somebody that comes right in and you can hit the ground running with. But yeah, I do think, again, you have to address this in the draft, and that's, they've done a good job. And you have to hope that John Lynch, former safety, is going to know what he's doing here when it comes to, drafting a safety as well too, right? So yeah, I think that's a very good call. What's next after that?
Love Makuba, by the way. Yes.
Yeah,
I would go offensive line. And I have it. Some might say this is a little lower than I'm sure some other fans would say. Some people still think offensive line is the top need. I do think they need a tackle, right? But I just don't think you're going to get what you need from the draft, and certainly not this one. If you can get Membu at 11 and he ends up falling there, Will Campbell, yes, I mean, you kind of run to the podium, right? It's awesome. But if that doesn't happen, I think they're okay with the group of guys that they have. The only position that they absolutely need to upgrade this year, no ifs, ands, or buts, to me, is center. But the 49ers have never brought in a rookie center to start. They like veterans, guys who have experience already, because their center has a lot of responsibility. So that's why I have it where I have it.
Yeah, and again, it all depends on the board. I think,
yeah.
In my opinion, Membu is for the streets now, and I don't see how he even slips past the Patriots now. I don't think he's in our plans at 11. Then it comes down to Will Campbell translates to a guard early on. Okay, so you're gonna draft Will Campbell and start him at left guard, over, and then obviously you have Pooney at right guard, and then you hope that he kind of kicks out. I think that becomes interesting, but yeah, offensive line for sure, and I do think it's center. My God, but the thing
Yeah,
is
has to be.
the center class doesn't exactly evoke a lot of let's just say optimism. So is it Matt Hennessy? Is it Nick Sakel? Is it Jake Brendel? Yeah, God, please, I hope it's not that. But we're going to find out. And I do think that if we're looking at the instant upgrade that this offense needs, the offensive line particularly, it has to be center, right, at this point. So we'll find that out as well, too. And then I'm guessing your number one is defensive tackle.
Yeah, so no, I have edge, linebacker, and then defensive tackle. Number one, defensive tackle.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Okay. So defensive tackle for sure. I think at 11, if Mason Graham is there, I think they run to the podium and they send that up. And I think, again, the 49ers have tried to figure out a way to replace DeForest Buckner. By the way, if it wasn't clear, your god, Adam Peters, is the one who loved Javon Kinlaw, because look at the bag that he just gave him, by the way. They've been looking to replace DeForest Buckner, and they just haven't been able to find a guy who's been able to stay on the field and be disruptive in the way that he has. So again, Mason Graham fits that mold. And I think the 49ers have kind of underestimated having that defensive tackle presence on his defensive line to help everyone else. 2019 was so easy, right? Rush 4. That's cool when you have DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, and Dee Ford. I don't think the 49ers have that luxury anymore because they don't have that sort of star power. So how do you do that? You start with Mason Graham, and then you can address edge as well, too. Obviously, Joey Bosa's in the mix. We'd love Azeez Ojulari, but defensive tackle has to be deeper. Less than it is just impactful players. Is you just need to start filling that room out because it is getting thin, and it's getting thinner by the day.
Yep. Yeah, so the draft is going to be interesting. They got a lot of needs right now. I do think they'll replenish some of these via free agency with some guys, but a lot of work to do. So
yes, a lot of work to do, and job's not finished yet, right? It's only day 2 of free agency right now. There's a lot of things to figure out. Things have been a little bit crazy, but I feel like these first 2 days of the legal tampering period are always going to be crazy in that way. Legal tampering is such a fun term to just say. I don't know why, but I want to ask you this, Steph. On a scale of 1 to 10, your worry about the 49ers and their free agency move so far and what their plan is looking like?
It's just the lack of them and the lack of being able to see what the vision is right now. Just because, yes, we knew one part of it was moving on from some of these older players, some of these, arguably bad contracts. And, the second part is what is still unknown to a lot of us, right? And getting younger, yes, we'll see if they bring in some younger guys in free agency. I expect that's what they do. But yeah, it's a little unknown. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Yeah. And I think the best way to say it is it's incomplete right now, right? It's an incomplete grade.
Yeah.
Because until we figure out this draft class, until we figure out the moves that they make in free agency, which are going to be in the second and third waves, we won't be able to say. The first wave has been filled with overpays at every single position. Overpays. So are we happy that they're not overpaying? You have to say yes. Did you want some of those players? For sure. But at what price? And I think that's the part that, you can't really have both ways. Because when the 49ers were jumping out, signing Jerick McKinnon the first day and Javon Hargrave the first day, what happened, right? Like those contracts end up blowing up in your face, right? So I think, again, maybe just a little bit of patience is what we need here. And I know that's a lot to ask for. Patience is tough. Some say it's a virtue. But still, it's an incomplete grade right now because we are following what the team has told us. And, you're kind of watching everybody just shop through Walmart and just throw things in their cart and just check out and self-checkout. And the 49ers are just like, I got $3, man. Like, I don't really got so. But great episode, Steph. I think, again, the story of free agency and everything in the draft, it's waiting to be told. And I can't wait to be a part of the retelling of it. So thank you guys for joining us for another edition of Bully Ball. on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Thank you to the chat. It was great discussion. Everybody that's viewing, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when everybody goes live. Follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte213, my goodness. Make sure you subscribe to the Bully Ball Podcast wherever you get your audio podcasts. And, Steph and I, we run our own YouTube channel as well, too. So take a look over there. But so our season's just starting, but we're going to be here to break it all down. For Steph, for Jay, we're out of here.
Peace.